Hi, my name is Jason Yamala.
I am Eric de la Cruz.
And I'm Christopher Wu.
And our topic today is on the viral family of Retroviridae. Today we'll be discussing the human retroviridae virus, also known as HIV, its life cycle, how it's transmitted, and how it can be prevented and treated. Moreover, we will also be talking about how there is a stigma surrounding the HIV virus.
An introduction. Retroviridae are considered a retrovirus because of their ability to go against the central dogma. The central dogma is a process where DNA is transcribed into RNA and RNA is then translated into proteins. Retroviridae negate the central dogma by using the enzyme reverse transcriptase. It's also known as RDDP. This allows for negative sense single-stranded DNA to be made from a positive sense single-stranded RNA template. Some background on retroviridae would be the genome type. The genome type is a positive sense single-strand RNA. The capsid type is icosahedral. Some of the hosts that retroviridae can affect are cats, chicken, mice, equines, bovines, caprins, and humans. Retroviridae typically cause cancer as a disease in their host, and in the case of HIV, the retroviridae that affects humans, viruses cause AIDS. Or this virus caused AIDS. Some of the epidemiology. So there are more than 35,000 new infections of HIV each year. In sub-Saharan Africa, the virus has become endemic and 2/3 of all people who are infected with HIV live in sub-Saharan Africa.
When we look into the life cycle of retroviruses such as HIV, we can see it follows the steps all viruses follow for infecting a host cell. On the right is the HIV life cycle, where it starts with HIV fusing into the host cell surface and then releasing viral proteins upon entering the host cell. The viral RNA is then converted into DNA by reverse transcription and transported to the nucleus and integrates into the host DNA. From that, new viral RNA is made and used to make viral proteins, which are then moved to the cell surface, resulting in an immature HIV virus. The virus is released and cleaves onto polyproteins, where it becomes a mature virion and restarting the cycle. So after talking about the life cycle of HIV, we will talk about the pathogenesis of HIV. Pathogenesis is the manner of development of a disease. For HIV, after attaching itself and entering the host cell, it begins to immediately infect and degrade CD4 positive T cells, leading to immunodeficiency. In the later phases, HIV fragments attach themselves to chemokine receptors, CCR5 and CXCR4 specifically, for HIV entry. In the end, CD4 positive T cells have depleted, making our cells highly susceptible to other viruses and eventually leading us to our death. But before HIV can begin infection, it must be transmitted. HIV can be transmitted via sexual intercourse, infected blood, or tissue exposure, transmitted during pregnancy to offspring, only if the mother or father is already infected with HIV. If HIV has successfully transmitted, you will experience the following symptoms according to the World Health Organization, which are fever or chills, sore throat, swollen lymph nodes, rash, or mouth sores. To prevent possible infection, here are potential risk factors that will lead to a higher chance of transmitting HIV. Unprotected anal or vaginal sex, sharing of needles and other injecting equipment, as seen on the image to the right, and receiving unsafe injections, blood transfusions, tissue transplant, and other medical procedures involving unsterile cutting or piercing.
There are a myriad of ways to protect yourself and prevent the transmission of HIV. To decrease the risk of contracting HIV, it is highly recommended by the CDC to follow specific protocols to protect yourself and others around you. One way to prevent contracting and spreading HIV is to practice safe sex by using condoms. Another way is to use pre and post exposure prophylaxis medicines These pre-medicines reduce risk of contracting HIV, especially if you have ongoing risk, whereas these post medicines are used after the initial infection. The these post medicines are more effective the quicker they're used after infection. Moreover, it is highly recommended to never share needles with others and to always get tested after participating in activities with high risks of HIV exposure. In terms of diagnostics, HIV can be diagnosed through rapid tests that provide same-day results. Most of these tests involve the antibody detection of antibodies created by the host to fight HIV. These antibodies are usually developed within 28 days of infection. Also, there are these HIV self-tests that people can take, but no single test can provide a full diagnosis. In order to receive the full diagnosis, you would have to go to like a primary care and get diagnosed by a doctor. As for treatments, as it stands today, there is no cure for HIV or AIDS. However, there are different kinds of treatment options. One option is ART, or antiretroviral therapy. ART uses medicine to make living with the HIV virus and its symptoms manageable, as well as reducing the risk of spreading it to others. The medicines used in antiretroviral therapy can reduce the amount of viral particles in the body, allowing the host's immune system to recover from fighting off the infection. These medicines contain enzyme inhibitors that prevent viral replication. For example, nucleoside reverse transcriptase inhibitors block reverse transcriptase from converting host RNA to viral DNA, thus preventing the assembly of viral proteins. In addition, integrase inhibitors block viral integrase enzymes from assimilating their viral genome into the host DNA. As with all viral infections, it is recommended to start treatment as soon as possible after diagnosis in order to prevent the HIV infection from progressing into AIDS.
Stigma surrounding HIV. So HIV stigma refers to irrational or negative attitudes, behaviors, and judgments towards people living with or at risk of HIV-5. Some of the common stigmas of HIV. People, a common stigma of HIV is that it's infectious simply by touch. This is false. HIV requires, as stated before, either blood-to-blood contact, the exchange of fluids, or sex. HIV is only caught by homosexuals. This is another false judgment made commonly by people. You can catch HIV whether you are homosexual or heterosexual. It has nothing to do with the disease itself. HIV means you can't have sex. This is also false. You can still have sex. However, you need to make sure that it's protected sex. You can do this through the use of condoms. There's also internalized stigma from people who have HIV, believing that they're not loved or they can't come in contact with other people. And this is false. We have to support everyone equally. Advocacy. So creating advocacy for this disease and the false statements that people believe in can help to create a safer environment for people who have HIV. Some current research. Some of the new treatments and current research involved are anti-HIV antibody therapy, CRISPR gene editing, HIV antibodies post-treatment controllers, and antibody-dependent cellular cytotoxicity. Because most of these new treatments and research have to do with antibodies, I provided an image of antibodies on the right. And although these new treatments and findings, as well as current research, will continue to advance our knowledge on HIV and retroviridae as well as create a foundation on which a cure might be found. I'm sorry. These treatments and findings, as well as current research, will continue to advance our knowledge on HIV and retroviridae, as well as create a foundation on which a cure might be found. These are our references, and thank you for your listening, and have a great day.